Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a few wrap-ups. I realized I never ended up recording any wrap-ups for like individual months so far this year, and so we're going to be doing January, February, and March in this video. So take this as a wrap-up for the first quarter of the year. So to start off, I do have like my sheets pulled up on my laptop. That's kind of how I typically track everything. Is each month I will put like a rough draft of a TBR of like what I'm wanting to read that month, and I have the book title, author, my rating, and what format, whether it's like physical, Kindle, audio, stuff like that. And I used to, before I like changed it on my sheets, I used to put in a link to my Goodreads review, and that's just too much. I just like didn't want to have to do all that. So at the end of each month, I kind of go back and see if that's actually what I read. And if not, I just switch out the information. And I also make sure to put in books I'm really wanting to read that released that month, just to kind of keep track of that and remind myself like, hey, this is coming out the 15th, this is coming out the blah, blah, blah. So this next month I do have that, and I'll probably briefly touch on like April. I'll probably do a separate video for how I'm feeling about April and like books and everything. But yeah, let's get started. So for January, the first one that I finished was Death's Obsession by Venus and Graves. This one I ended up rating 3-star. Now, to be completely honest, I feel like if I would have read it at a different point of my life, it maybe have been more of a 2.5. I know that doesn't like make you like eager to read it, but I have to be honest. Overall, I would say I enjoyed it. It was like captivating, but it felt very repetitive, especially after reflecting on it more so now than at the time, like in January. I had been relating to a few things that the FMC was going through, and I do enjoy like a good for her moment within books. And this one, Death himself is kind of like following her around and keeping watch of her every move and just leaving her little notes and doing like acts of services for her, like just being very attentive, even though he's Death and she's a person. She had a very traumatic experience and is dealing with her own grief while dealing with the grief of like her failing relationship and how crappy her boyfriend is. And so there are things that I related to her with that, and I really liked the idea of it, and I just wish it would have pushed it further. Like, while I gave it a 3-star, I think reflecting more on it now, I would maybe rate it a little lower, maybe 2.5. And that's not me saying it wasn't a good book. I did enjoy it. I just feel like it could have been more. This felt like, now reflecting, it felt more of like an idea of a book. It could have been fleshed out a little more and a little longer. I think we just could have gone a little more in depth with what was happening, and I just feel like we needed to push more boundaries with it. But overall, I enjoyed it. If I were to do like a yes, no, baby, if I was going to do a yes, no, maybe, this would probably be within that maybe category. The next book that I finished was definitely meant to be finished before Christmas time, but it traveled into the following month because of my Spotify hours. But that was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. I'm sorry, the only crime of the year was y'all lying that this book was good. I didn't like it. I like the idea of it. I didn't really think either of the main characters were likable or that relatable. I know a lot of people were relating it to Knives Out. I would say that very loosely. Like, I understand the whole idea of it, of like having all these people in this house and there's a mystery, and that's about it. I know Allie Carter usually writes more romance, and this did have obviously like romance aspects, but I just don't think it really went into the mystery nearly as much as I wanted it to. Yeah, it just didn't go there enough for me. Like, the mystery to begin with was very good, and whenever we had like a small plot twist of like a red herring, I really enjoyed that part, but I wanted more mystery within it. I just felt like that was like almost brushed aside part of the way through, and this like romance was heavily pushed. And I will say that I do like parts of the romance where we went back in time to have like the moments of like where he started really recognizing her and liking her, and then same for her, like flip-flopped. I liked that. That was a nice touch. But overall, it wasn't for me. I know a lot of people loved it, so this is probably like an unpopular opinion. But if you liked it, you liked it. It just wasn't for me then. But I did rate that 1.5. Next one I did was The Night Guest. It was an audiobook. It was very quick. Like, I just sat there one morning and just listened to the whole thing. I really enjoyed it. This one was a 4-star for me. With this one, I will say, if you're somebody who likes thrillers and horror, but you want every little question answered, this might not be for you, simply because it's ambiguous and has like that open-ended feeling, like you're left with questions, but it's intentional. I said this in a TikTok a while ago that I feel as though when it's open-ended, I think sometimes people mistake that for being plot holes or lazy writing, and I beyond don't agree with that. Sometimes, sure, that does happen, but with this specifically, that's not the case. Very intentional for you to feel like you were like kind of losing it alongside the character. I love anything that's to do with unhinged females in horror, and I feel like this was done really well. It was one where I was kind of like questioning my rating at first, and I think I was in between like a 3 and 4, like 3.5. And then I immediately went to Reddit after to kind of gauge what other people were saying, kind of looking at theories and confirming my own or kind of like challenging my own. That's what solidified it as a 4 for me, because of the amount of like fun discussion I could have afterwards with like other readers. That just added to the experience for me personally. The next was one that I was so highly anticipated, and I had looked in the bookstore for it and I could never find it, but it's Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This so good. It is what, 70 some pages, very quick. You can fly through it in like obviously a sitting, or if you do audio, I haven't looked where that's available, but I'm sure it's somewhere. That'll be done in like 30 minutes. Like, it's so quick. But I loved this one so much. It was very unexpected. I wasn't really sure what type of horror we were gonna get with this one. Once again, this does dive into that unhinged female like rage, which is something I'm like really wanting to focus on this year when I'm reading horror, just because that's like what I'm relating a lot to, and I don't know, it just speaks to me. So like that's kind of like part of my intentional reading, is to read more of those type of books, and this fit perfectly with that. I was a little nervous going in if I was gonna have a hard time reading it since it is older, but it was really easy to read. I followed everything perfectly, and I think it's just one that once you grasp the overall story they're trying to tell and like the societal issues we're discussing, it just hits 10 times harder. Horror does a really beautiful way of talking about societal issues. Like, I know right now it's very popular, like the grieving process and all that. Some people are over the whole like grief horror. I'm so not. I love it forever and ever. Like, this is so good. This does it so well. I just love when horror makes you emotional in a way you wouldn't expect. You know, people just think about horror and it's like a scary thing, but it can be very beautiful, and I think this is a perfect example of that. January so far is the one that I've read the most books, so still continuing with January, I have Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. This one I really enjoyed. This was actually my first memoir that I've ever read. I did this actually through audio on Spotify because I knew she was I did this one as audio since I knew Bethany was what is the word? Narrator. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I knew Bethany was the narrator, so I really wanted to make sure to do the audio version of this just to hear her story from her. This one was actually recommended to me by one of my bosses. She loves One Tree Hill, so anything related to One Tree Hill she will be involved in. And so of course she read this and immediately told me to listen to it as well. Very surprisingly, even though I went to school in Wilmington, I have never seen One Tree Hill. I have looked at all the merch in the stores. I have taken a few friends by the houses that they filmed at, but I personally had never watched it. Up to this point now, I've watched almost through season 1. I like very purposely didn't watch the finale because I was gonna make my parents watch it with me because I felt like they would have liked it too, but I've yet to do that. So I'm probably just gonna have to continue by myself. But it is just, you know, you hear her story and it's crazy that she's going through this part of her life on this show while still heavily being involved in this cult. It's just, you wouldn't have expected it. And I just love that she is like giving herself this voice again and telling her story and the way people manipulate you. And I think it was very important that she pointed out at one point, pointed out towards the end, that people are like, oh, like, yeah, I would never have fallen for that. Like, how do people fall for this? Da da da. Even when it comes to like just abusive relationships in general, I think a lot of us are very quick to say that, but it's very easy. People are called manipulators for a reason. It's not because they're not good at it. That's why they're called that. I think a lot of times we still come off very victim blaming when it comes to situations like this, and I just commend her for like telling this story and like giving a lot of other people voices and then speaking up against like people who have said that to her. So while this has been a popular book, if you haven't gotten to it yet, I definitely recommend. So the next book is probably my favorite book that I've read so far this year, despite it like at its current state being a 4.5. It's again one of those where I look back later, like now reflecting, that I could probably easily make it into a 5. I just haven't changed it on my sheets. But it is Mary by Nat Cassidy. This is the first Nat Cassidy book I've ever read. Beyond will not be the last. I have recorded a video on like 10 books I'd like to read this year, and one of his is on there as well. He's definitely become an auto-buy author for me. Despite me doing Mary an audio version, I would love to get a physical, and it's honestly one that I feel like would be really good to annotate, take note of like the different topics it discusses and everything. This one was actually inspired by the Stephen King story Carrie, and how she's going through this time of life that is puberty and growing up, and things are changing within her body and the frustrations of people not understanding her. Yes, she has these like telekinetic powers, everything like that. This is kind of if Carrie grew up with the issues that she had, but also didn't have these like supernatural powers, like where would she have been today? And that's kind of like loosely what it's based on and like the inspiration behind it. But this one, whereas Carrie was like a puberty story, Nat Cassidy kind of tells us as a like second puberty while she's going through menopause. And I think that was just so important. And I was like, just kind of in awe right off the bat because of that, because nobody talks about menopause at all. Like, you know, we very heavily talk about puberty, and even that, there's a lot of stigma behind it. You almost feel like it's a taboo thing to talk about very openly. But with this one, he just takes such care of discussing that time of life for women and how they're just so brushed aside, everything they're experiencing, your hormones, your body, like everything's going through changes once again later in life. But whereas now your main struggle isn't just school, you have a job, you have children, you have a family, like all these different things going on in your life. That is a lot to handle alongside life. This was like another beauty of horror moment for me reading this book, and I think it just did it so well. Obviously there's a lot of different like concepts that are going on alongside this. There are like serial killer ties to this, a big mystery revolving around everything, like very haunted vibes. So I just feel like everything was meshed very well together. I was doing it, like I said, audio, and I was listening while working, and I think at the time I was just like wanting it to end, not because it was bad, but just because I was ready for a resolution. And so that's kind of why I did the 0.5. It's I don't really talk about horror movies on here. Sorry, that is something that I would really love to do. So if I eventually do that, don't leave me, because I promise I'll forever talk about books. But the movie Companion, absolutely love that so much. I rated it 4.5. I don't even have a reason not to rate it a 5. I just didn't. And that's kind of what I did to this book. So take this one a grain of salt when I say it's a 4.5, because it's basically a 5, and I just have yet to change it officially on here. This is 100% one of my favorite books of the year, and I hope that it will continue to be. If not, I'm sure it'll still be within like that top either like 5 or 10 for sure. But I'll definitely keep updated on like books that I've loved throughout the year and like where they rank. A book that I really thought I was gonna love but kind of fell like in the middle of ranking was in Nightfall by Suzanne Young. I liked it, but I didn't. It was hard because I was very involved. I was in the story. I was a side character. I was very invested from the beginning, just hanging on to every little detail that was being said, and it was very entertaining, and so I feel like that's why I gave it more that 3.5. It does have that Lost Boys vibe, but at the same time maybe almost too much. I feel like we were just taking the whole plot of the Lost Boys and making it into a book, and that kind of makes it hard for like ranking and everything. This is definitely like on the list of yes, no, maybe, a maybe. And the last book that I finished in January was, I have to read this because I can never remember it, The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie by Frida McFadden. This was a satire. It was basically her making fun of herself, and I died laughing the whole time. I read this also during work, like the audio version, and I was just like cracking up all the time because the way she was just like making fun of the thriller genre and these ridiculous tropes that are often thrown out there, or like red herrings and theories. Like it was silly. It was so silly, so fun. very camp. I absolutely loved it. I don't really have much to say other than that for it. So if you have the time, which you probably do because it's very short, definitely add it to your TBR because it was funny. And then moving on to February, this was a shorter month, but some of my favorite books. So this one, I meant shorter month in the sense of like my list, not the fact that it's a shorter month, which it is. I only read 4 books. So I had The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson, Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I ate all these books up. So The Haunting of Hill House, yes. I have seen the show. It is one of my favorite shows. It is so beautifully done. And I feel like I'm like being very annoying by saying the beauty of horror so many times in this video, and I do apologize for that. But also, no, I don't, because y'all need to understand how good this stuff is. Like, you really need to grasp that. Like, I do love some nasty horror. Like, I don't get me wrong, I love like gross. We're gonna get into an extreme horror like splatterpunk book here in a little bit, but like I do love me some nasty horror. Like, I'm a terrified girl. So that felt very unrelated. I'm just trying to get it across that I'm not being pretentious with my horror, okay? With like only liking like very emotionally deep moving horror. But anyway, this was one of those. Now, I will say, if you have seen the show, do not go into this expecting the exact same thing. Do not go into this expecting the exact same thing, because you will not get it. Mike Flanagan definitely took things from this and gave it a new life. I think both are very, very good for what they are in their own right. Shirley Jackson did an amazing job of showing just a broken person and almost showing a person grieving what they could have had, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know how to describe, I genuinely don't know how to describe it at all. I feel like so many people have seen the show by this point, and so I'm just going to go out and say it. Nell, Eleanor. The characters are not the same. They're not like siblings or anything. They're complete strangers to each other, but it does have Theo, Luke, and Nell. Nell is heartbreaking in this story as well, but in a very different way. I'm not going to go into details about the show because I would never spoil that show. Never, because what they did was amazing. But the way Shirley Jackson wrote Nell's story in this one was also just as heartbreaking, but I feel like it takes you a little bit more to wrap your brain around it, if that makes any kind of sense, because it's also one of those books where you feel not a lot is happening, you know, especially if you're coming from watching the show. If you watch the show, it is like bang, bang, bang with like heavy hitting, like either jump scares or just like intense events, emotional events, all that. Whereas with this one, those moments don't really come too often. It is a slower paced book, but when those emotional moments hit or those intense like scary moments hit, it's impactful. I think she did a really good job, and what Mike Flanagan did with it afterwards, I have no words. The next book, that was Love in the Time of Serial Killers. I had very high expectations for this one. As I know, Alicia Thompson is a romance author. I have not read any of her other books. Even though this wasn't my favorite one, I would definitely like to give some of her other works a shot. I'm always very cautious when it comes to romance authors, mixing in with like mystery or thriller. And I feel like that's how I felt with Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. With this one, kind of similar to where I just needed that mystery to draw out a little longer. With this one, the FMC moves into her dad's home after he passes away to kind of clean it up, get it ready to sell for the summer. And her neighbor is like suspicious in her eyes because she loves like true crime, consumes all of that, and so basically anyone who does anything weird is suspicious. And so she's questioning her neighbor. He's a hot guy, so she's like, is him being a murderer scarier, or the fact that I might fall for him scarier? Which is like a fun concept, so I was very excited about it. And I did relate a lot to the FMC. Like, she's plus size, she loves true crime, like me, basically me. So I did overall like it. I just felt like we could have gone a little bit more. The MMC, kind of boring. So I just gave it like a solid 3. Nothing crazy, but it was good. The next book is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This was so amazing, and I can't even describe it. I'm gonna make a comparison here. The way Rachel Gillig did Shepherd King, how creative, unique, What did Lady Gaga say?
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique, completely not ever been done before, unafraid to reference or not reference, put it in a blender, shit on it, vomit on it, eat it, give birth to it.
Legendborn is like right up there with One Dark Window. The world building and the way I am like eating up every single character that is on page. I know we're talking about Legendborn, but I just have to talk about like these two together. The way these two are loved and heavily talked about, but not talked about enough in my opinion. Like, I'm not gonna hate on certain popular fantasy books, but I just feel like some things are done a little nicer in my opinion.
That's my opinion! Don't you get it? Why can't anybody have an opinion but you?
Those books are fun, don't hate me. Legendborn is just good, okay? I'm sorry. Amazing. I loved that it is set in North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina, I live in North Carolina. So her referencing certain things throughout the book was really fun for me. I know that's like not the main point of this at all, but the fact that oh my God, I can't even remember what all we mentioned. I don't know, but I know we mentioned Bojangles, and I about screamed when I heard that. And she mentioned Bowberry biscuits. I could have screamed. Absolutely love that. So there's just like random little things that I could relate to, and I like understood what she was talking about throughout the story when it was relating to like North Carolina and like the history here and everything. It is so well done, and I think Tracy does an amazing job of having these diverse characters and talking about these harsh topics of like grief, racial and societal and class issues, everything, doing it with probably the most true intention that I have seen. I just think all the characters in this book are very intentional, very strong, very needed, and each have a story to tell, and I think it's done so well. Whereas some other authors are just trying to tick boxes in order to like gain a wider audience, and it just feels weird. It feels like it's done for the wrong reasons, and it's like I don't understand your motive. Just some representation just doesn't feel genuine, I would say. But Tracy does a beautiful job with this. I think it's so fun to have stories revolving around like King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, like all this stuff that like we've heard growing up, but probably didn't even know a whole lot about ourselves, and recreating it and having such a unique storyline. I just think it's so fun. I get nervous when saying that I would like film adaptations of certain books because I never want it to be done wrong, but this genuinely, like so real, could have the same impact as like Hunger Games. I don't care if you think that's a bold statement, because it's really not that bold. It's true. It really, really could. But that's like, I hate saying that because I don't want it to happen, because I don't want it to get messed up. And then probably one of my favorite books / like series I've started this year is the Rebel Blue Ranch series. And so I read I always say that. I always want to say Dawn and Dusted for whatever reason. I think that just like flows out of my mouth a little easier than Done and Dusted. Regardless, Done and Dusted. I read that in February by Lila Sage. And thank you, Lila. You have made me a Western romance girl. I love you. This was so much fun. Yes. So I've read up to Lost and Lassoed, so I'm all ready for this month for Wild and Wrangled to come out. Done and Dusted was 5-star. Oh, sorry, Legendborn was 5-star as well. But Done and Dusted was so much fun for me. It was the first romance book that I would say that actually kind of got me into romance. I still wouldn't say that I'm a romance girl. I'm a borderline romance girl, but this is what could change me. I loved the characters. I thought Emmy was great, Luke was great. Now reading more, their story might be one of my least favorites, just comparing, because these are just so good. But I have a soft spot for them, and it started off this journey with these characters in the Ryder family, and I was so happy to get into it. And then in March, I continued my Rebel Blue Ranch journey with Swift and Saddled and Lost and Lassoed. Just know these are both 5-star. Wild and Wrangled's coming out soon. That will also be 5-star. You won't catch me rating anything lower than 5-star for Rebel Blue Ranch. Now, whenever I read Swift and Saddled, that was 100% my favorite. I loved their love story. I thought they were a perfect match. I love the fact that like their romance started out like a little scandalous, and the fact that they like basically were about to hook up, and the next day, oh, she's his boss. I love it. I love it. Now, Ada is like the light of my life. I love her to death. She has probably been one of the most relatable characters that I have read for me personally within a book, and I hold her very near and dear to my heart. I have a lot of similarities with her, like personality is one, and then her like previous relationship experience I relate a lot to, and so I just loved seeing her grow through this story and find someone. And I'm like, oh, I remember writing the book like I just want to find my Wes, like especially after my last relationship and relating with Ada so much. I'm like, okay, it's my turn. I need my Wes. And I say that, but now I need my Gus. Listen. I love him. I've never seen this man, but inside here, he's my type. I'll tell you that much. He's my type up here. Yep. Teddy has been one of my favorite characters within this entire series throughout, and so I was so excited to get to her story. And while I loved Swift and Saddled, I was like almost nervous to start Lost and Lasso because I had a deep feeling that it would probably become my new favorite because I love Teddy so much, and it did. I love and adore Teddy. She's such a fun character, and I loved seeing her struggles. I actually ended up relating to her a lot more than I expected to. I thought she was a fun character, but before I'm like, oh, like I don't really relate to her much. Like personalities are very different. We don't have like really anything in common. But obviously once you focus more on like her story and what she's struggling through, I don't want to give like too much away, but she is struggling like career-wise. She's like struggling with how her relationship with Emmy's going because Emmy's moving on and going on to like other parts of her life where she feels left behind, like that kind of thing. I related so much to those two things, and so it was really nice to see Teddy like basically like find herself again. I thought it was like done very nicely, and I loved the banter between Gus and Teddy. They're freaking precious. And I just also love that that Gus is a single dad. I love it. So yeah, I just thought that relationship was very sweet. The relationship Teddy was also growing with Riley was so precious. And, you know, like obviously we know that it's a love story and that they're gonna fall in love, but the characters don't. And so watching her relationship with his kid grow and like knowing what's gonna happen like later, like as a reader, like or what you're anticipating to happen later as a reader, it just makes every little moment between them even more special in my opinion. And so yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I'm beyond excited for Wild and Wrangled this month. The next one that I read is very different from anything I've read so far. It is horror, but it is more in that extreme horror / splatterpunk genre. And that is Bittersweet Chocolate by C.M. Goudreau. This one definitely has that unhinged female. Love it. It's definitely a good for her horror book. So what I've noticed when looking through different like extreme horror or splatterpunk books, they are a lot shorter, and honestly probably good they are because they are intense. This one I gave 4-star to. I really enjoyed it. I definitely would like to read more from this author in the future. I know she also has It's Me Charlie that's ranked highly as well, so I'm very curious to see how that one compares. Not that they're like the same story, but just being within that same genre and then being such short stories. But yeah, this one, she's getting revenge in gross ways on Valentine's Day. That's all I'm gonna say. If you don't like gore, or you're queasy / you don't, or like body gore specifically, you can do some gore but not body gore, this might not be the one for you. So just kind of look up like certain trigger warnings, I guess, for that. And next one is the first true crime book that I have ever read. So this one was an arc that I got from NetGalley. It is Time of Truth. Let me pull up the full title because that's not like the full one. Okay. A Time for Truth, My Father Jason, and My Search for Justice and Healing. I'm so glad I read this. I've never read a true crime book. I have consumed basically every other form of true crime for the longest time. Podcasts, documentaries, series, everything like that. And I'm really glad that this was my first one. Whenever I was on NetGalley, I was just looking for certain ones that were available, and I was like wanting to start to get into true crime books. This one popped up. I was initially just intrigued by the cover, and then whenever I looked into it, it was actually a case that happened 30 minutes from here. So once I found out it was such a like close to home case, I was like 100% excited. Feels like not the right word here, but looking forward to reading this one since it wasn't a case that I was actually familiar with. So Sarah goes over the story of her father who was murdered by her stepmother and her stepmother's father, so her like step grandfather. It was hard to read. I will 100% say that consuming true crime from the lens of somebody else and from the lens of someone who's directly involved and was there during the crime are completely two different experiences. So she not only discusses the grief of losing her father, but also her birth mother who passed away at an extremely young age as well. After this occurred, she did move with relatives back to Ireland, where her father is from, and would have to occasionally come back and forth between here and Ireland for court appearances. It just shows the turmoil of dealing with the justice system. Originally, I'm trying to remember the numbers, so if I'm off, I apologize. But originally, they were supposed to get, I think, 27 years. But they ended up doing a retrial and claiming that it was self-defense. And that her father was abusive. And she really just took this opportunity, the stepmother, to drag his name through the mud and make up disgusting stuff about him in order to get herself and her father off easier. They were told they could get up to 17 years, but due to them not having any previous record, they were out after 3 years. Respectfully, but not really. I can't. I hate seeing this. I hate having to hear like from the daughter of like how her father was failed. It's just so disgusting. It was stated in the book, and I will like reiterate it, that I am so glad that she was able to give her father a voice and give other people who have experienced this a voice and be brave enough to speak up against these things. She talks about how her stepmother was like constantly degrading her, telling her lies about her own father and abusing her as well. Like, I just think, I know true crime is looked at as a genre that it's looked down upon a lot, especially for people who like consume it or like enjoy it. I know for people who do not like true crime as a genre, I understand the points as to why they do, but I will so heavily stand by the fact that as long as it's done in a respectful way, it is so important. These people, their lives were changed completely. People's lives were taken away. They were completely ripped apart and destroyed. They have the right to tell these stories. Ironically enough, in Love and Time of Serial Killers, since the FMC was so into true crime, she was doing her thesis on this and how true crime as a genre, the way it is portrayed within these documentaries or podcasts, etc., it really drives your brain and how society views certain topics and how society will feel about a certain crime or certain people involved in the crime, how society is forced to feel based on that portrayal. But this is coming directly from the daughter of the victim, and she's a victim herself. And I think it is so important to, if you're going to look down upon true crime as a genre, please understand and respect the people who have actually been involved in wanting to get their stories out. It is so important for these stories to continue to get out. There are so many cases that would have gone unsolved without it being public, without web sleuths getting involved. I don't know if people often realize that, but there are so many times where like new evidence is brought up because of web sleuths, because they have watched documentaries or listened to podcast episodes. And without these forms of, lack of a better term, entertainment, these people that these stories are about would be forgotten by society and by their community. And so I think it's very important to continue to tell these stories, and I just commend Sarah so much for this. And this book actually came out like March 18th, so it's still pretty recent. So if you are even slightly interested in getting into true crime, or if you're wanting to, but you want it to be more directly sourced, this is a really good one for you to try out. Sorry, that was like a really long ramble there, but I just felt like it was important to talk more like intentionally with that one. I'd rate it 5-star. I'm never going to rate a memoir any less than, because who am I to judge the way people tell their story? Anyway, moving on. The last one that I read in March was William by Mason Coyle. This one I ended up doing audio. It was a pretty quick one as well. I can't remember how many hours, but maybe 5 or so. Like, it was very quick. I ended up rating it 2.5, and I was so upset by that. I knew it was like robot AI related, and I'm pretty picky when it comes to AI horror now. I think a lot of the same stuff is being done over and over again. It's not scary anymore. It's not as impactful anymore. I will say there was like a plot twist towards the end that I did enjoy, but just like the rest of it, like I wasn't scared. And while not every horror book needs to scare me, but since this one wasn't really offering anything else for me to really latch onto, it needed to scare me, and it just didn't do that, unfortunately. You know, and like the whole AI thing with horror is not new at all. We had iRobot, Eagle Eye, that one was really good. Now, more recently, we've had Megan, which is fun and campy, very campy. Afraid, no. Companion, which was amazing. I think that was like probably the best current way to do AI. It wasn't just like a freaking Alexa. Like, that's not, like, I'm so sorry, I'm not afraid of Alexa at all. Like, that's not scary to me. So it needs to be like more of that robot form, or like humanoid or whatever. And so I think like Companion did that well. My brain is getting lost. It is not Rebecca. What is the name of that one? AI, Cassandra on Netflix. That one I thought was gonna be very silly, and it kind of was, but I actually was very surprised by it. I thought we were just gonna get like a lame, non-scary robot, but the whole storyline behind it was actually like pretty, like, it was pretty good thriller mystery. I really enjoyed it. My family and I watched that, and I don't know what I really rate the show, but overall, like, I feel like those two, like Cassandra and Companion, are pretty like current when it comes to like AI and like where horror should be going if you're actually trying to be scary within doing that. William just didn't do that for me, so that wasn't really the best ending to March, I would say. I started 2 other books in March, but just didn't obviously finish them. So I had like Clown in the Cornfield and Haunting Adeline, and that's like 2 of my current reads for this month. I'm also still reading Bell Jar. I'm trying to remember when I started that. It might have been February. Like, it's been a while, and it's taken me a bit to get through it. It's not that it's not good. Not a lot's like happening, you know. It's like just one of those books that it might take you a bit to get through. It's a slow start. So yeah, those are all the books that I've read from January through March. So I've gotten through 17 books. I have 50 books on my like reading goal this year, but January was definitely my best reading month. I don't want to stress myself too much though throughout the months of like making sure I hit certain goals. So if I eventually don't get to 50, like, it's not the end of the world, but like, I'd like to, just because I want to be able to read more books. It's not because I feel like I have to reach a goal. It's more so of like just reading from more authors and just diving into more genres and just like, you know, experiencing more. So definitely from now on, I will be keeping up with my current wrap-ups and trying to do them monthly, so that it isn't nearly as long as this one. I definitely would like to be able to do shorter videos, so it's less to edit at once. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this next month, April. I feel like these books are going to be ones that I love. It's going to be a really good wrap up, so I guess look forward to that. But if you have like certain books that you've read from January through March that have been your favorite, or even least favorite, like, let me know both. But yeah, I'll be back soon because I'm trying to record more. Thanks for watching. Bye.